Hello, my name is Alex Iles, and in today's episode we're going to talk about Roman gold ending up in barbarian hands. Welcome back. So in today's episode we're going to be speaking about the Bractiae just behind me, and if you like the look of them, why don't you subscribe, because I think you'll enjoy the content that I produce on this channel. Now that you've done that, let's jump straight into it and let's talk about Bractiae. And these are little gold icons which actually come from the Latin word meaning a thin piece of metal. Now they're amazing because they're little pieces of gold that are single-sided, and they're generally from the migration period, or what's sometimes also called the Germanic Iron Age, because obviously the Iron Age within the Germanic world outside of the Roman Empire continued much longer than it did in places, let's say, like Britain and France, where obviously Roman conquest meant that they were under direct control of the Roman Empire. So outside of the Roman world, you had the Iron Age continuing in what is today Germany and also in Scandinavia and places like that. But even though those places were outside the empire, they were directly affected by the Roman Empire and the way it worked, which is where we get these Bractiae from. It's amazing, but when you think of the Romans, you might often think of, the scene in Gladiator, the starting scene, where the Romans come along, they defeat the Germans, and a Roman officer standing next to Maximus goes, "Our people should know when they're conquered." That sort of thing. And you look at the Romans and you think, well, they must have just put down the barbarians by defeating them militarily every single time. Well, actually, in a Roman mindset, warfare is expensive. Throughout history, warfare has been expensive, and also it's unpopular if your side gets killed. So if your young men are going off to fight in unpopular wars, things like that, it can actually cause you at home to become unpopular with your local people. And so because of that, the Romans decided that sometimes it was just better off to pay off the barbarian, to give huge quantities of gold to the barbarian themselves, and by giving this huge quantity of gold to the barbarian, they would not attack Rome. Now, to give you an example, from the 450s, the Huns were originally paid 350 solidus a year just to basically keep them away from the Romans, and this was increased to 700 gold solidus. Now, there were 72 gold solidus in a Roman pound, which is 326 grams. So if you think about it, 10 Roman pounds of gold a year were given, and that works out as 4.5 kilograms of gold a year given to the Huns. Now, you might think that's not a lot of gold, or you might not think of it as a huge sum of money. But a Roman soldier was actually only paid 4 solidus a year. So if a Roman soldier is paid 4 solidus a year, you can see the difference in coinage. Alongside this as well, a low-level senator was expected to have an income of around about 1,000 solidus a year, and a wealthy senator around 4,000 solidus. So you're starting to get an idea of how much money we're looking at. Alongside this as well, during the reign of Constantine, a single gold solidus was actually worth 275,000 debased denarii, because at this time the denarii only had 5% silver left in it. So if you can imagine that you've got all of these denarii in circulation, well, a single solidus, 275,000 I've already mentioned. So a normal person is not going to be walking around with a solidus inside their wallet going, "Oh, well, you know what, I'm going to buy something with a solidus today." It's not going to happen. We're looking at insane quantities of money, and the Romans are then taking this quantities of money and they're taking it and they're throwing it into the barbarian world. They're throwing it into southern Scandinavia, into modern day Germany, and they're going, "You're right, here's the gold, you guys have this, don't attack us, stay away from us, we will be happy as long as you guys are happy." And that's how they did it a lot of the time. And they start turning up in the archaeological record from around about the 5th to the 7th century AD. Now, often they're styled in the style of late Roman coinage, so they'll have the face of a Germanic king on, but he'll be styled like he was a Roman emperor. Alongside this as well, you also see some Roman coins, sometimes even coins from the period of Constantine and period like that, so early 4th century, being reused inside these Bractiae as well. So you get these amazing sort of pendants, and they've got either Roman coins in the center or new stylized Germanic kings where they'll have their hair all done up and they'll look as if they were stylizing themselves like a Roman emperor. Or you sometimes get these images which have been interpreted as gods, and one of them is a figure who is on horseback with a bird and a spear, and it's been understood as possibly like a Wodan figure, like an early proto-Odin, and these characters will be on them as well. Whatever they are, they're wonderful little gold pendants, and they turn up all over the place, sometimes in hoards, sometimes lost. And the earliest one we have from England is actually called the underlay bracteae. And this is a really lovely one because it was found in 1984 in Suffolk in a field, and it's thought to be about 5th century, and maybe a case of an Anglian individual coming over from Schleswig-Holstein, which is thought to be the early medieval Anglia, migrating into the British Isles and bringing over their bracteae with them. And when you've got this amazing little bracteae, it's got an inscription on it that says, "A reward to a kinsman." And then it's got a really interesting word which I'm going to try and pronounce as george. And it's very similar to another one that's been found in Denmark, and it's thought to possibly mean something like a magic chant to protect the wearer. Obviously, because it's been lost to time, we don't know the context of that chant, the word, or what that word means, but wherever it was, the person was wearing it on them, and it had some significance to them. So you've got this really interesting sort of tradition going on where Roman gold, which is being given to barbarians to stop them from attacking them, then ends up being turned into these pendants and is worn by people within the 5th to the 7th century in the rest of Western Europe, and these locations going from being parts of the Roman Empire to being new early formative kingdoms, which would then develop to become some of the early medieval and medieval kingdoms we'd recognise later on. So it's really interesting to see that we've got this Roman gold that's been given to stop the barbarians from attacking the Romans, being turned into these pendants, and then being spread throughout southern Scandinavia, throughout Germany, and into the east coast of England and southern England, and how these then become important markers for understanding the new culture that's coming out of the fall of the Roman Empire and into this early medieval period and the transformation of cultures there. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Not only will I have opened up the fact that there were huge wealth inequalities within the Roman Empire, but also Roman gold ended up inside the barbarian world. And I really hope that's caused you to think about how things worked in that sort of late 4th, early 5th century AD. As always, I really hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already done so, that you've enjoyed the video, and that you'll join us again for another one soon. If you would like to, I have a Patreon in the description below or a Ko-fi account, but as always, there's no pressure for you to do that. In the meantime, stay safe and well, and thank you so much for watching.